Today's episode is about something that so many of us struggle with, and that is how to stop comparing your fertility journey and your timeline to others. Because when you are surrounded by pregnancy announcements and people who are so much further along than you, and seemingly so effortlessly as well, it's easy to feel like you are falling behind, like everyone else's dream is coming true except for yours. But comparison doesn't mean that you're failing. It's showing you what your heart desires the most. And when you can shift from comparison to trust, everything changes. And on today's episode, I want to show you exactly how to do that. Welcome to your journey to fertility. This is the podcast that blends science with spirit to give you all the tools you need as you navigate your fertility journey. I'm your host, Jennifer Edmonds, and for the last 15 years, I've been helping women on their journeys to motherhood and beyond. I believe that combining the latest scientific research along with the best energetic and mindset practices will help you to avoid putting your life on hold and bring you closer to your baby. Each week, you'll learn ways to support your fertility and trust your body so that you can stop stressing that you'll never have your baby and finally walk your path to motherhood. This is the Your Journey to Fertility podcast. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me today. This episode is all about dealing with comparison. This is something that comes up for all of us when we are struggling to conceive. And I think we're going to talk about the reasons why it comes up, but it starts from such a young age, isn't it? You know, the society that we live in sort of pits us against other people from day one. So this is something that I think it really needs to be spoken about because it brings up a lot of emotions that we tend to be a little bit shameful of. And because we don't talk about it, we tend to think that, you know, we are the only ones experiencing it or the ones feeling this way. This episode was actually inspired by a beautiful listener who wrote me an email a few weeks ago. And it said, Jen, what can I do to stop this constant feeling that I am left behind? All my friends and my siblings have started or completed their families, and we have been on this journey of struggling to have our first baby for nearly 3 years. I feel like I have nothing left in common with anyone, and every time I see my friends, it's just a reminder of what I don't have. I would love to hear your advice on how to get through this. The trap of comparison, it is such a killer, isn't it? And just talking about it here today, I think is helpful because when we do put these things out into the open, it reduces the shame that often comes up and these awful feelings that we have around jealousy and envy and why do they have what we want and why is it so hard for me and so easy for them? When you feel like everyone else around you is getting pregnant, it is also a really lonely place to end up. And as I hope you are aware now, this is something that happens to so many of us. But when you do end up in this place of struggling to conceive, it really does feel like you are the only one going through it. I also really want to acknowledge how painful so many of these moments are. Things like scrolling social media when all these people that you knew from when you were at school, they're happily building and growing their families, and it's just constantly, you know, you go through these stages in your life where everyone's getting engaged and then there's all the wedding photos and then suddenly it's all of the baby announcements that you know are coming. And I remember that horrible pit in my stomach where someone I knew was just about to announce their pregnancy and I was getting ready to brace myself. It's this awful feeling of just being surrounded and being so out of control. It's really hard. And I think that one thing we don't realize is that comparison is a human response to uncertainty. So when we feel like things aren't going our way, when everything is so out of control, we look at what other people have that we want and we can't help but feel left behind. It's this double-edged sword, isn't it? You know, our brains will always want to crave evidence that what we want is possible. But as soon as we get that evidence from somewhere, we see that big pregnant belly, our brain immediately sort of twists it into proof that, you know, you are being left behind, or it's that fear that we're never going to get what we want in our futures. So today we're going to talk about how to stop comparing your journey to someone else's and how to come back to your own timeline with trust. It's simple. but it's not easy, like so much on this journey. I did an episode a couple of weeks ago on surrender, and I think that this ties in beautifully to that episode. So I would recommend that you go back and listen to that, because being able to surrender into the unknown is a huge part of this. So if you haven't already, once this episode is finished, jump back into that one. Let's begin now by understanding, where does comparison come from and why do we do it? And also know that comparison isn't bad. Like everything that comes up for us, it is just information. And it shows you what you desire most. It really shows you what is important. And whenever we are triggered, it really is like these little gold nuggets that we are uncovering along our journey to show us where we need to do work on ourselves. And we do this comparison trap. It comes up everywhere, doesn't it? From work to relationships to where someone is along their career path with money. It is such a competitive society that we live in. It starts from when we're at school. It's this person came first, this person didn't win. Where are we ranked amongst other people? It starts from such a young age and then it carries on. So now we see these perfect lives on social media. We get to experience all of the joys of advertising that is based on fear. How often are you seeing an ad where it's the person with the perfect skin or the perfect hair or, the pregnant belly? So everything that we experience in our world is based on comparison. So it's a very hard thing to get out of, especially as women, I find. Our culture also puts motherhood on a pedestal. And so when others achieve it first, it can feel like we are being left behind. It's something that is so celebrated. And it's not just about the outcome. It's not just about, well, they're pregnant and I'm not pregnant. So that's where all of these horrible feelings are coming from. It is about the loss of so much more than that when we are struggling through infertility, isn't it? It's the loss of identity. It's like, well, who am I if I'm not part of the friend group of everyone who's got the 2 or 3 kids? I don't fit in with them. I'm not single, so I'm not wanting to go out and party every weekend. So who am I? I don't fit in anywhere. It's this loss of control, the loss of being able to plan your future and what you thought your future was going to look like. You can plan your job and your career to a certain extent, and even your relationship a little bit as well. We're going to get married in this time. But when you are struggling to have a family, everything goes out the window. It affects all of the choices you're going to make, what work you're going to do. Do you go for that promotion? Do you tell your boss? Do we want to move to this house? Do we need more space? Are we going to book that holiday? So it is this huge loss of identity of what you wanted to be and what you thought your life was going to look like. That feeling of being so out of control when you're told your whole life how easy it's going to be when you want to have children and when you want to start a family. You thought you'd be able to pick your age gap and how many kids you were going to have. That is a huge loss as well. So I want to acknowledge all of that first. And that's why when we compare ourselves to others, it feels so traumatic, because it is. You have been through a lot to be on this journey. I felt so much shame around infertility when I was the one who couldn't do that thing that my body was designed to do. I worked in the fitness industry. I was the healthy one. I was the one helping others get healthier and be the best versions of themselves. I couldn't believe that I was the one that this had happened to. And it's so weird to me now, but I didn't even tell my mum when we started IVF, which is wild because we are so close. And looking back now, it's like, what did I have to be ashamed of? And the answer is nothing. And I hope that if you're asking yourself that question, I hope that you know the answer is nothing as well. But I look back at this time and I think to myself, why did I feel so ashamed? Why was it that I felt like such a failure? And why was I so desperate to have kids on a certain timeline and then have them so close together? And in my mind, I was going to have, a baby then and a baby the next one after that. Where did that pressure come from? And I think when I look back on it, it all came from me. And yes, there were a lot of influences, upon my lives. And I think in society, this whole idea that we have our kids 2 years apart seems to be the done thing. I don't know where that came from. But when you look at why you're comparing yourself to others and asking, why am I not where I want to be? Where does that pressure come from? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't want all of those things, and it's okay that you do. But that pressure of, I wanted it yesterday, I think that mostly comes from ourselves. So that is worth pointing out. When you see someone else who is pregnant, your subconscious says to you, that is what I want. And I'm sure you can relate to this when you find out that having a family maybe isn't going to be as easy as you'd hoped. It feels like pregnant bellies are everywhere. Little kids are suddenly everywhere. I've spoken about this before on the podcast, but your brain has this filter called the reticular activating system, the RAS. And the point of this filter is to go through the literally hundreds of thousands of pieces of information that your brain takes in every minute and filters through all of that and shows you what is important, because you wouldn't be able to process everything in your environment. Like, you don't need to know what the color of that car over there is or how fast that person is walking or whatever. But the things that are really important, your RAS then signals to your conscious brain that you need to pay attention. So when you suddenly tell yourself that having a family is something that you really, really want, and now that it's something you don't know is going to be that easy for you, your brain goes, okay, this is something that we need to be aware of. This is a big thing. So every time you see a pregnant belly or a little kid or a family all together, your brain goes, this is important, and it brings your attention and awareness to it. So there are no more pregnant bellies than there were X number of months or years ago, but now you are so conscious of them. So I really want to point that out, because it can feel overwhelming. And it isn't that there are more pregnant people throwing their pregnant bellies in our faces. Really, it's just a little survival instinct of your brain showing you that, yes, this is important, so I'm going to remind you of it all of the time. The challenge here is to somehow shift from this feeling of envy or jealousy or whatever you want to name it as, and shifting into inspiration. So how can we reframe comparison as a mirror to what is possible rather than a measurement of what we don't have? Someone else's pregnancy is not proof that you have failed. It is evidence of what is possible. And you might sit here and say, well, it's possible for them, but it's not possible for me. But I can 1,000% tell you that is exactly how I felt. And of the hundreds of thousands of women that I have worked with that have gotten to the end of their journeys, I assure you they can say they felt that as well. It is possible for you. It just hasn't happened yet. So this is a really huge shift to get into this idea of, I'm going to go from envy and jealousy and what I don't have into, well, this is what's possible for me. It's very hard. But today I really want to give you some tools to start doing that. So what I want to begin with now is what comparison does to your brain and to your body, and why we need to kind of start addressing it. So it's a dysregulating tool, basically. When you look at someone and say, they have what I don't have, and that just makes me feel terrible about myself, it's a way of pulling you out of your body and getting into your head. And this is hugely dysregulating. So this kind of sounds dramatic, but it disconnects you from your intuition straight away and puts you into survival mode. It literally puts you into fight or flight. And again, I know that sounds dramatic, doesn't it? You know, you're not in a life or death situation here, but your brain, your nervous system doesn't know that. When you see something that you want that you don't have, and it sends you down this thought spiral of, well, it's never going to happen for me. This next round of treatments isn't going to work. I'm just going to miscarry again. I'm going to be left at the end of my life without the family that I dreamt of. Like that's a lot to get from, you know, this small side of seeing someone else's pregnant belly. So to your brain, it's life or death. So you go into fight or flight straight away, and all of those chemical processes start happening in your body. It creates shame and resentment that your body isn't doing what it's supposed to do, or that you're not keeping up with what you're supposed to do. So I want to gently remind you here, you can't heal or start to find an easier path on this journey from this place of fear and dysregulation. So once we know that it isn't something that you're choosing to do, it is your brain automatically going into survival mode, you can start to kind of separate that. It's not an emotion. It is a physiological reaction that your brain is having to perceived danger. Your poor brain doesn't know that that poor pregnant woman isn't about to chase you and eat you alive. So once we recognize that, I find separating stress from something that's sort of happening because I'm feeling an emotion, but shifting that into something that's happening because my brain is trying to protect me, I find that's really powerful. So how do we then start to move on from that? How do we actually stop this endless trap of comparison? So I've got 5 steps that I've written out for you because, as you know, I do like a list. I'm a list person, and I find that it's just easier to organize our thoughts and to make a plan here. So step 1 is to be able to name what you're feeling without judgment. So once you have recognized that you're going into this comparison trap, you're spiraling, you're getting dysregulated, like so much of what this healing work is, it's about awareness. So I want you to name what is coming up. I'm feeling comparison right now. I'm feeling left behind. I'm feeling deep envy, feeling fear of the future. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling frustrated. And then get really petty. Like, there's no right or wrong here. I just want you to get it all out, whether it helps you to write it down or to just name it in the moment. Everything that's coming up, she has what I want. It's so unfair that this is happening to me. Get it all out. Just become aware of it and allow it to be there without judgment, because that is where we start to remove the shame of so much of this. Step 2 is to then anchor back into your body. And here's where your regulating tools start to become really, really effective in the moment. So using breath or whatever it is that helps your body to get out of this, well, I've now zoomed into 20 years in the future and I've gone down this horrible fear spiral. What can I do to reconnect to the present? Rubbing your hands together, taking a few full deep breaths, or just remembering something that has happened to you exactly this same day, something that is just going to anchor you into the present and get you a little bit more aware. Step 3 is this word that I don't like to throw around too much on the fertility journey, but it's worth mentioning, is to shift into gratitude. Now, I know gratitude is one of those things that people are like, ugh, I know I need a gratitude practice, but it's very hard when my life is feeling like it's falling apart. I totally get that. So instead of getting to gratitude, a much easier place to get to is neutral. So instead of being like, oh, I'm so grateful for my life in this moment because there's a pregnant person and she's got everything I want. I get that that's a huge leap, but how can we get from dysregulation into neutrality? So I think that is where we can start to, instead of saying I'm grateful, that's where we can start to say, here's a reminder of what is possible for me. I like to use the word possibility rather than hope. I find that's a lot more tangible. It feels a little bit more realistic. But remembering that every woman who has walked this path had these feelings of it's never going to happen until it did. So know that there is so much evidence that has happened before you that this is going to be possible for you as well. Getting you from dysregulation into neutral is the goal. And then, if possible, maybe you want to do a little bit of what am I grateful for in my life? Maybe that's something you do later on that day. Step 4 is to limit triggers with intention within your life. We talk about this a lot, and I did a long episode a few weeks ago around navigating friendships and relationships on this journey. Oh, because it is really, really difficult to navigate the nuances and the complexities of every relationship that is affected by your journey of trying to conceive. But I want you to give yourself permission to really curate your environment with intention. So not with avoidance. It's really easy to go into avoidance and being like, oh, I'm just going to mute the group chat and I'm not going to go to any of these group dinners or parties that are organized because they're all just going to be talking about families. And it's okay to avoid when we need to. But be intentional with what you are setting up your day with. What are you allowing into your life intentionally? Whether that is curating your social media feed or putting your phone away a little more often, being intentional with who you spend your time with, and really noticing who are the people in your life that fill up your cup and you leave feeling better than when you went into that conversation with that person. And just giving yourself permission to protect your own privacy and peace a little bit more. This cannot be said enough. Step 5 is to then reconnect with your own timeline. If it helps you to journal out a few of these things, I think that is really helpful. One thing that I love doing was to celebrate the little wins. And even now, when I'm having a tough experience in my life, whatever that might be, I like to go back and say, okay, well, I've got this big thing that I'm going through, but what little wins can I show as an example that I'm on the right path? So when I was struggling through IVF, I used to do this because it was a reminder to my brain that all was not lost, that there were still little things happening in my life that were signs of progress. And I just had a list in my notes app on my phone. So for example, I went from having no menstrual cycle at all to then getting my menstrual cycle back and then watching it go absolutely haywire with the stress that was my journey of not being able to conceive easily. So when I found my fertility yoga practice and I incorporated so many of these regulating tools into my life, it was amazing to watch these little things start to change. So I started to make a list of them. This month, I had a 27 or 28-day cycle. I didn't have any PMS. Last night, I fell asleep really easily, which was huge for me. And I would make a list of all of these little things that would happen in my life. And I would look back and I would read through them when I was having a really bad day. And I think this is a beautiful thing to get into the habit of doing because it is a reminder to your subconscious, to your nervous system, that you are creating change and that you are making progress on this journey. And our brains like to be reminded that we are on the right path. And that then shows that RAS, that filter in your brain to keep looking for these signs of progress. So that is super powerful. If you take one thing from this episode, I think it should be that. Other things that you can write down or journal about are asking yourself, where were you a year ago? And how have you grown in that time? And I'm not saying that you need to be grateful for everything that you've been through in that time. There are going to be things that have happened and you say, well, these were just really hard and really difficult. And I don't have to be okay with them. But what have I learned from them? What have I then been able to recognize in my life needs to change? Or what have I been able to bring into my life because I've now been on this journey? Maybe you've met some amazing people that you never would have met otherwise. I'm not saying again that you have to be grateful for everything, but how has this journey been able to help you in little tiny ways? That I think are those like little cracks that start to open the doors to a lot of change. And the other thing I would invite you to journal around is, what is happening for me right now that I couldn't see before? So what are some of the things that perhaps needed to change in your life and you didn't realize it until you went through something difficult like this journey of infertility? For me, I found there were things in my relationship that we just kind of faff over or avoid talking about that really couldn't be avoided when we started struggling. So we had to have some of these big conversations. And I honestly believe that my relationship is stronger and much easier for having those. And maybe we would have had to have had them at some point in the future, but it really brought everything to the forefront. And that was a gift in itself. So ask yourself, what could be happening for you right now that could actually be something that's going to make your life easier in the long run? So the last bit of this episode that I would like to mention, let's get a little bit woo about this trap of comparison. And I think it's really important to remind ourselves of the fact that your baby has their own timeline. And whether you believe this or not, whether your baby's sole purpose is something that you believe in, but our babies journey is divinely timed as well. They have their own soul purpose and their life to live, and we don't really know what is involved in that. Your journey is really divinely timed as well. Nothing is late. You are always on time. Things are going to unfold in a way that hopefully is going to make sense one day. Maybe it won't eventually, but there is that possibility that it will. I like to think that my baby chose me and he was ready to be there when he was ready. And I think there is a little bit of comfort in knowing that they are aligning with their own perfect timing with you and just trusting that your timelines are going to meet. And when you can kind of sit into that energy, it feels like there's less grasping, there's less rushing to get to where you want to be. So I hope that helps you as well. If you are interested in spirit babies, there are a few episodes that I have done with spirit baby practitioners and mediums and those who can connect you with these little souls. And I found it really comforting to do those sorts of sessions and work with people and just to know that I was in the right place at the right time. So if you want to listen to some of those episodes, go back and have a look at those. It's a really nice way to connect with your baby. So as we finish up today, I want to remind you that there is not a race here. There is not a finish line and there is no falling behind because the only person in this race is you. There is no one that you are losing to. You are right where you need to be. And I really invite you to reframe each moment that you compare yourself to someone else as a reminder to say to yourself that what someone has is proof of what is possible for me as well. So thank you for joining me today. If this episode just helped you to release a little bit of that clutching and desperation and grasping energy and helped you to breathe just a little bit more deeply, then I invite you to share it with someone who may need that same reminder today. It is something that I used to always come back to on this journey. Peace, finding these moments of peace, that is progress as well. Now, next week will be the very last podcast episode for 2025. Believe it, we've put together, I think I've done about 60 episodes this year, which is wild to me. Thank you for being here on this ride and for letting me share all my thoughts and to helping me just allow me to support you on your own journey as well this year. Next week on the podcast, I have something a little bit different in store for you. I'm going to be sharing some of the parts from my own journey as a way to help leave you with a little bit of hope as you go into that Christmas and New Year period, which I know is such a difficult time for so many of us. So I hope to have you back next week with me for that episode. But until then, I am sending you all of my wishes as you continue your own journey to fertility. The most common thing I hear from students who are on their fertility journey is that the stress of trying to conceive has taken over their life. Your days end up being filled with endless appointments, navigating pregnancy announcements. You're trying to eat right, take all your supplements, and it is all you think about from the moment you wake up. I designed the Element Fertility Yoga course to support your body, your mind, and your mental health in 3 important ways: to synchronize your hormones, increase circulation and blood flow, and to help regulate your nervous system. But on top of this, the greatest gift that you can give yourself throughout this journey is a sense of peace to help you calm your mind and just make this process feel easier. Every single one of my students tell me that this is the first thing they notice after starting a yoga, meditation, and breathwork practice. But on top of this, you have the amazing benefit of actually supporting and increasing your fertility. Studies have shown that those participating in mind-body programs as they're trying to conceive have success rates 3 times greater than those who don't. The course I've designed walks you through natural conception as well as fertility treatments and IVF cycles. And the best part is you can work through it at your own pace in the comfort of your home. The practices start from just 10 minutes per day. To learn more, visit elementpilatesyoga.com or see the link in the show notes.